What's going on, guys? So on Monday, Apple released iOS 26 Beta 3 alongside iPadOS 26 Beta 3, watchOS 26 Beta 3, visionOS 26 Beta 3, and tvOS 26 Beta 3. So today we're going to be taking a look at some of the new features as well as some of the bugs fixed and everything else associated with this new Beta 3. Let's take a look at the build number here. It says it's iOS 26.0, and then there's the build number 23A5287G. So we now have a G at the end of the build number, which indicates that it's closer to final release, but still has quite a few betas left in this beta development cycle. Now, installing it for me, it was about 1.4 gigabytes on my iPhone SE second generation. This is my secondary iPhone I'm using to beta test. Although some people were saying it was a lot more. Some people on newer devices were saying it was upwards of 9 or 10 gigabytes. Either way, I still needed to have about 15 gigabytes of space available, which I just found kind of unusual because of its small size. Some people believe the size was a visual bug, but we're not exactly sure. Either way, it took almost 40 minutes to download and prepare to install on this iPhone SE second generation, although to be fair, it is an older device and it needed to be charged, and I was having issues charging it, which I think is not a bug in the beta, but I'm not very sure on that. But after downloading it, it only took about 10 minutes to install, which is not that long. But let's go ahead and get into some of the new features in this beta 3. And the first is new wallpaper options. So we go to change our wallpaper here, and then we'll go to customize, and then because this is the iOS wallpaper, you can see now we have 4 different style options. So the second one is called Sky, and that's the default. We also have 3 new ones. One of them is called Shadow. Here's what that looks like. Halo, and then Dusk. But you also have dark mode counterparts for each of them. So if we go ahead and change this to dark, that's what Dusk looks like. That one looks really cool in my opinion. Then Halo, Sky, and then Shadow. So those are some new options. They look really solid in my opinion. So these are really good updates by Apple there. Apple also released a new aerial screensaver option for Mac users titled Tahoe Day, following the macOS 26 Tahoe theme. You can see it on screen here, and I'll also leave a link in the description where you can download this. Now onto liquid glass, and here's the big change in beta 3, and it's especially noticeable in an app like Music, where you can just see it's just lacking that liquid glass element. You could kind of see it transparent between the little like menu icons here, like more translucent, but that's no longer applies to the menu buttons themselves. A lot of people online are saying this is kind of a step backwards, so it sparks quite the debate online. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. They would have made a similar change to Safari, specifically the start page, and you can kind of see it's a bit more translucent through there, but it's still less so than it was in beta 2. It's definitely better than the Music app in my opinion, but it's still not great. And I did say it does depend on the app here, because we can take a look at an app like TV, and you can definitely see it's less translucent than it was before. It almost looks similar to Safari. It just depends on the interface you're in too. You can see it, you can kind of see it through there. It's just very interesting. I personally think it's a step backwards, but remember there are a lot of betas left in this development cycle, so Apple will most likely change this back, or at least maybe provide some customization. This change was likely sparked by some negative initial feedback when Apple first announced this, so we'll have to see what they change, how they change this in beta 4. And some people online are referring to this more as more like frosted glass, and it does come with better readability. You can see you can read this text very easily, and even in like Safari it will actually change from light to dark, because you can notice that it is more readable in dark mode, at least in most scenarios. But say the scroll bar, this search bar at the bottom maybe hovers over something that's not as readable, you can see there it changes to dark mode with like a sort of like dark background. Search or enter web address text is now light, and that's much easier to see. We have a couple bug fixes and many new features when it comes to journaling suggestions. So journaling suggestions on iPad can now sync over iCloud securely to iPads, meaning you can now use these on your iPad. This helps to fix a bug where these suggestions may not download properly, specifically on the iPad or another device secondary to your iPhone. There's also a completely new feature called Smart Notifications, which I guess kind of revamp the normal journaling reminders. These smart notifications let users know know when it's the best time to journal based on their routine or location. So these notifications are kind of smartified, if you will. And then the suggestions list was revamped to show scene classification, including events such as holidays, celebrations, groupings based on patterns, and more. We'll have to see this in person. I'll understand fully. I'm just reading off of the release notes, and I haven't gotten this to work yet on my iPhone. In the Messages app, there were a couple of bug fixes relating to some of the new messaging features in iOS 26, such as live translation and message screening. First of which fixes a bug where sent translated messages do not get retranslated after an edit. It also fixed a series of bugs regarding message screening and filtering regarding how these new messages are categorized. The product's accessibility nutrition labels are now in the App Store. You can find this if you go past the app privacy labels. You can see an accessibility header right here. Now, unfortunately, there aren't really any apps that have this yet because they need to submit the accessibility features they offer to Apple some point in the near future. Likely, if I had to guess, before the final release for iOS 26 is out. So no apps really have this yet, not even Apple's own first-party apps. We'll have to see which apps gain this first as they submit their accessibility offerings to Apple. A series of bugs was also fixed relating to the readability or the proper display of certain text or images, specifically in parts of the OS such as the lock screen or the notification center and the Apple TV app, one having to do with line items in the settings of the Apple TV app that would appear twice or disappear randomly. In other parts of the OS, like the lock screen or the notification center, these bug fixes have more to do with the liquid class design. And the order tracking feature in Apple Wallet just got a lot more useful, as it can now find emails sent by merchants or delivery carriers and will use those emails through the power of Apple Intelligence. By the way, this feature is only available on Apple Intelligence enabled devices. Anyway, it will conveniently track their progress and pull them together into one place in the order tracking menu in Wallet. So it's going to be much more convenient to track all of your orders, even if they don't offer a track in Apple Wallet option. Those will now track automatically thanks to Apple Intelligence. Some parts of the control center were changed as well. Just minor changes with the background with the new liquid glass, but mostly changes with the icons. Like these icons, like the cellular connectivity icons and the brightness and volume slider icons are a lot brighter now, so they should be easier to see, especially in sunlight. Just a small little change there, but should be useful. In the release notes, there was mentioned a small bug fix when it comes to game controllers, and there's also a new feature when it comes to gaming. And so when you're using a game controller, a supported one like a Sony DualSense controller, and you go into a game here and you press the home button, if it works, there it goes. It will open a sort of games overlay here and you can also navigate it using your controller. You can use like the bumpers to switch tabs. You can use your thumbsticks or your arrows to navigate, and you have some options here. It's like a little mini control center here of just your three main options: music, display, sound, but you also have controller settings here. You can change default controller if you have maybe more than one connected, and then you can go down to settings there, go back into the game overlay. It says the game you're not playing, and then it can show your game center achievements, leaderboards, challenges. They can be viewed here when they're available. And then again, you have some tabs up here you can scroll through. There's your friends, and it also gives you an option to go to your full friends list and your contacts. There's also an option to go directly to the Apple Games app, which you can navigate to using either your arrows or your thumbsticks. Have that selected. Tap X if you're on a DualSense controller, or whatever the continue button is you have mapped to, and then that will take you directly to the Apple Games app. iPadOS 26 Beta 3 has a new, quote, Mac-inspired cursor, as well as a bug fix related to the menu bar. There's also a brand new feature called Recovery Assistant, which is a new way to recover your device if it won't start normally, and can look for problems and attempt to resolve them. So kind of automatic troubleshooting there. We'll have to see how this works once people start using it. So I'm sure it could be a pretty useful new feature once people begin using it, likely after the public beta or after the final release. And now iOS may dynamically reserve update space for automatic updates, allowing updates to download and install successfully, fixing a bug where software software updates may reserve more space than needed. And we have many bug fixes in iOS 26 Beta 3. I'll list just some of them here, but you can find all of them in the release notes, one of which is where some keys are not visible in the keyboarded first-party apps. That should now be fixed, and they should be usable. Another is when wallpapers or posters with adaptive depth, they should no longer lose depth if you upgraded from Beta 1 to Beta 2. So another bug fixed was when the play sound fails when invoked from the share item location link in Find My, and it would show not reachable. Should be fixed now. Another bug was fixed where sharing a URL through CloudKit sharing does not launch third-party apps. That should work normally now. And another bug fixed was when template apps using the now playing screen sometimes did not load artwork in full screen using CarPlay. Another bug fix is in the Books app where the highlight menu palette would just be black and white. That should be the normal coloring now. There was a myriad of routine bug fixes relating to background assets, mostly surrounding failures during installation or downloading of apps or packets, as well as a couple of small bug fixes for specific situations when using Apple Intelligence, specifically in Image Playground and Genmoji. And there was also one serious fix, is that when some iPhone 15 or 16 models might show a low battery symbol and be unable to start after updating to Beta 1, this one was finally fixed. And this was quite a serious issue since you would not be able to use your phone at all. You would have to downgrade. If your phone is still somehow affected, Apple does recommend downgrading to the latest version of iOS 18. Bugs were fixed related to Wi-Fi awareness, where connections could fail randomly after 120 seconds or while the browser is not running. Another odd bug fix was in the weather app. There would be a blank white button on some tips. This should now be the normal formatting there. The iOS 26 Beta 3 release notes included many new features and changes to several of Apple's APIs, some of which include things like Metal. So there were changes to Metal. Metal 4 is now supported. There were also a couple of other bug fixes related to Metal and Metal 4. Another notable one is that the Foundation Models framework is now available to provide you with direct access to the on-device large language model at the core of Apple Intelligence. So theoretically, this should improve Apple Intelligence, but we're not exactly sure the degree to how much yet. There are also some new features and bug fixes related to object capture, as well as some changes to Reality Composer APIs. There were also many new additions and resolved issues found in the release notes involving Apple's various APIs and frameworks, including but not limited to Ad Attribution Kit, App Intents, AR Kit, Authentication Services, Health Kit, Metric Kit, NSLog, MetalFX, AV Foundation, Assistant Schemas, Reality Kit, Store Kit, Text Kit, UI Kit. One of the new features with Swift is Chart 3D, allows you to visualize your data and mathematical surfaces in 3D, which is powered by Reality Kit. Most of these changes are more quality over quantity, but there's still a large volume of changes here, and you can see the full changes in the release notes, which I have linked in the description. There are also linked some known issues as well, like this one, for instance, and there's also many known issues throughout, which is expected for a beta. So I know the main spotlight of Beta 3 is the major change to liquid glass, and I myself am not a huge fan of this change. I don't think it's horrible, but it does make me miss what it looks like in Beta 2 and Beta 1. I understand that there were some issues with the liquid glass design, and they did need to make some changes to it. For example, like readability issues or just general bugs and glitches, some animation issues. But I did really just appreciate all of the design elements of liquid glass, and now it seems like it's kind of gone. Keep in mind that there are many betas left, and Apple can change this, so let me know what you guys think in the comments. I know there's a lot of different opinions on this. So when should we expect iOS 26 Beta 4? At this point, Apple seems to be releasing a new beta every 2 weeks or so. So I would expect that to be Monday, July 21st, maybe Tuesday or Wednesday, but they seem to be releasing them on Mondays. As far as the public beta, this could release next week, but if I had to guess myself, it will probably come with Beta 4, since there's still a lot of bugs with iOS 26 developer beta. I don't think they're quite ready to release it to the public, especially since when they release public beta 1, it's just going to be a copy of developer beta 3. I think they want to polish it out a bit more. So expect it next week or the week after that, the week of the 21st. I'll continue to make videos just like this when every new developer beta releases. Be be sure to subscribe for that. I also have quite a few other videos planned for the rest of this year in the world of Apple and tech. So thanks for watching, everyone, and be sure to check out the video on screen now.